What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tide Talk, the Rhode Island FC podcast that's for the fans, by the fans. I'm your host, Ryan, and whether you're a day one sicko or new to RIFC, you found your home. Every episode, we're breaking down the latest from Rhode Island FC, the matches, the moments, the players, and everything happening in and around the club. Before we dive in, make sure you're following Tide Talk across all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and everywhere else you scroll. Stay locked in for updates, exclusive content, and all things Rhode Island FC. If you're joining us live on YouTube, please say hi and share your thoughts in the chat. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, please take a second to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It helps us grow and bring you even better content every single week. All right, everybody, let's cozy up, let's crack a beer, and let's dive into this one. Tonight, I'll be joined by my co-host for the evening, Andrew Quadros. Andrew, that sounded like a gunshot went off. Are you okay?
I am. Yeah, I'm in the basement tonight. New spot. Got to put my own version of Timmy's Goon Cave here for the podcasting area. But maybe the ceilings kind of echoed the sound. But I got Bissell Brothers in honor of the trip, even though we didn't get the result, but got the beer.
I'll say I do have a very lovely smoky brown ale from Austin Street, one of my favorite breweries up there. We got a lot of people in the chat. We got some Up the Tides from Chris Peterson. We got Ben Johnson with a good evening chat. A whole bunch of lates per normal. We got Matt Hands here with an Up the Tide, Pawtucket J with an Up the Tide, and we got some additional things which we'll get into, including Matt Jean here with, are we allowed to say Up the Tide or will we offend the Portland fans? And boy, oh boy, is that probably going to be a theme for this evening. But yeah, folks, we are here to recap the RIFC's 2-1 loss against the Portland Hearts of Pine, a trip that many of us went on. Andrew and I were both there. We'll definitely get into that side of things. But yeah, I know there's a lot of feelings, a lot of thoughts on this match. And please, if you are in the chat, if you were there, if you weren't there, if you watched at home, if you didn't watch at all, let us know and make sure you like and subscribe if you are here. But Andrew, let's start with the fun part of this, right? The travel, the away day, the atmosphere, all the good stuff for it. So how was your trip? How was your travel?
Trip was good. I mean, it was a business trip for me. I was in and out in one day. I was planning for it to be a family getaway weekend, like many of other people did. Couldn't make that work with some of my family commitments that I had on Sunday morning. So instead left here at about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, drove up, got to Bissell Brothers, had some lunch, grabbed some beer, met up with the rest of the Tide Talk guys for some other pregame beers, went to the match, had drinks with you afterwards, and went home. So I was home by, I don't know, 11 o'clock or something. So pretty quick trip overall. Wish I could have stayed longer. I do really enjoy going up there. I usually try to go up once or twice a year, sometimes with the family, sometimes on these trips, but had a really good time. Got my fill of good beer and got to hang out with all you guys too. So it was a good trip. How about you? I know you've been there many times before, but obviously this is your first trip with the full family now. So curious, how was it for you?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we've been to Portland a ton of times. We actually got married there back in 2020.
got married there? Oh, no way.
Yeah. I got married there right downtown. We absolutely adore Portland. It was really fun. So it was actually our first trip with our newborn, my wife's first away day, obviously his first away day. And, as people are putting in the chat, like absolutely beautiful weather, great atmosphere. I love the city of Portland. They have great beer, great restaurants, great food. So it's a lot, all you could really ask for, except for obviously we're going to be forced to talk about tonight with the actual match itself. But, heading into this one, Andrew, the form has been spotty. We started off the season a little tough. We had what maybe called like a purple patch in the middle where we had that win against Lexington. We had a good good match against Revolution. We beat Charleston. We had a PK shootout win against Hartford, but we saw recently against Tampa and against Birmingham, the team kind of fall back and slip in their form. So kind of what were you expecting heading into this one?
Into this one, I was expecting a relatively comfortable victory. They've played us tough when we were up there last year. Smaller pitch, first time we were playing them. Cold, rainy night, the beginning of the season. So that you expect it to that be a little bit of an equalizer. Second time we played them, it was in our house, and we won that very, very comfortably. What I didn't know going into this one is how Connor was going to handle the rotation, if he was going to rotate at all. I know internally at Tide Talk, we had a lot of debate over how he's going to approach this one, given that they had a full week off and isn't a full week until the next game. But even if we had rotated, unless we were playing like the true reserves, I was expecting for us to win relatively comfortably. partly because Portland hasn't been good this year. Like they're toward the bottom of USL 1. They're still trying to find their footing. They've had some injuries to deal with. They lost a lot of their key players, and I feel like we're stronger than we were last year when we crushed them. So I felt pretty good about this one, and I think my prediction was 4-1. It wouldn't surprise me if it was like another 2-1 like last year, where they gave it their all in front of a good crowd and it was tight. But I expected our quality to rise above all of that and really be this be a comfortable win for us. So that's what I expected going in, and even just the form that they were on, they've been slumping a little bit lately, but I did feel pretty good overall. Now I'm starting to feel like I cursed them because in the last tide chart that I wrote, which for those of you who don't read it, it's a monthly blog that I do that kind of outlines who's trending up or trending down, and I usually put some sentiment of like how I'm feeling about that, where we are in that point in the season, and how things are going overall for the team. And coming off of the end of April, I felt pretty good about the way our home form was looking. I'd said, just in terms of my sentiment toward the team, this is the best that I felt really going back to the end of 2024. Like at no point last year that I really feel comfortable that this team was going to pull it together, like throughout the entirety of the season. Maybe a little bit in the playoffs in that North Carolina win, but for the most part, I didn't expect to beat Charleston. I didn't know what we were going to get out of Pittsburgh. I didn't really have a lot of confidence in the team last year, but that confidence was starting to build based on the good performances they were putting in April. It seems like they were starting to click. JJ was starting to get in form. So it felt like things were going well, and this has been a pretty shitty month. Like the home form hasn't been good. They've been essentially knocked out of 2 cups. Like it's just not great.
Yeah, I mean, like we joked last episode, like we put away the sad slides I was making for a while, but boy oh boy, could you happily bring those back. I mean, Andrew, 2 questions for you based on what you said. So you mentioned the Tide Talk crew was really arguing about what Kana was going to do. How much of that was Matt Hands arguing with himself?
It was mostly Matt Hands arguing with himself, and he started off, for those who want to know how the sausage is made. He started off saying this: we're not going to rotate at all. And then by the end of the week, he was more on our side. And then he kind of settled a little bit in, it's going to be subs and not reserves, which is kind of what we expected. But we thought that given what we have for the remainder of the schedule, this is supposedly supposed to be one of our easier matches. So I did think that we were going to see more rotation there. So I think we all felt more of that, and Hands felt the other way. And then we all kind of ended up somewhere.
For sure. And the actual question I did have for you from Pawtucket J in the chat, was the lack of rain a problem? Was it too perfect of a day outside?
I think we joked about that during the game. It's like or afterwards. They don't know how to play in good weather. They don't know what to do when the sun is shining and the field isn't slick. They were just lost.
I mean, I feel bad for the RFC front office because like there's some stat out there like almost majority of your ticket sales in attendance can be actually like just really plotted along with weather in this sport, especially for the US. And like, man, have they had awful luck this season on weather. And us sickos are out there, but boy oh boy, is it a tough draw to get of someone who wants to go to their first match when it's like downpouring, cold, anything. And as my normal trusty co-host Matt reports in the chat that it unfortunately is expected to rain this weekend. So we'll figure it out from there. But
when the team isn't an exciting product on the field, it's going to be even harder to draw people in when the weather isn't great. And based on what they had last year, going into this year, they needed to kind of come out of the gate hot and play really well at home and score a lot of goals and be exciting. And the weather just really worked against them. And it's unfortunate. And this is my second away day. We went to the Hartford match. The day of the Hartford match, it was dry here and it was pouring buckets in Hartford. So this is my first game of the season here on May 16th, where I didn't get rained on in a match, even though I haven't missed a home game and I've been to 2 away matches.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll get to the lineup here, but Matt Kerwin's point in the chat here, like the 11 should have been strong enough, and we definitely will get into that. But yeah, I mean, as we look here, we get to the lineup, but we have to stop first because, folks, Tide Talk is up for an award. We are up for. I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear the audio?
You can't hear it now.
Okay, good. So Tide Talk is up for favorite influencer for the Valley Breeze Awards. We do have a link in the episode description. We would absolutely appreciate your vote. We're trying to take down behemoths like Buns and Bites, some of the real mainstays in the RI influencer community. I don't think any of us would ever want to call ourselves influencers, but that's the category we're up for. Thank you for the nominees, for people who put us up for it. But now it's time to make our small but mighty army count and get those votes in. You can vote once a day, and voting ends on Wednesday. So now is the time to rise up, folks. Rise like the tide, or maybe unlike the tide, as we're going to talk about tonight. But we would really appreciate your vote, as well as like, subscribe, follow. There's a lot of action items coming out of each of these episodes, but we would really appreciate your vote here.
I can't promise anything, but if we win, we might be able to get a Tie Talker charity to show off their ass. I won't tell you which one. I won't tell you when. But if we win, I think that's we're gonna shoot for that.
All right, folks. Well, that's like a Russian roulette of like, what are you going to get with that promise? But
we'll do a new vote. You guys can vote.
Yeah, you guys vote and we'll figure that part out. We'll draw straws on our end. I mean, I did see someone in the chat had a good idea of, could we have a Tide Talk? I can't even find it. Yeah, could we have a Tide Talk episode of Hands just debating himself? So maybe we'll get some bonus content out of this.
We joked about that. There are times where, internally, a few of us can't make it to the pod, and we talked about just throwing Hands on there and having being the that Family Guy episode of, what really grinds my gears. And I can guarantee you, it would be a full hour and a half to 2 minute long episode of just Hands debating himself and telling you what grinds his gears.
It's beautiful. And Matt Jean asks if, what do you get to pick? We could also make that happen, guys. We get enough votes. The Tide Talk crew will do almost anything. So please test us on this. I promise you'll be happy. But getting to the starting 11 here. So we had Koke Vegas in net with Aldair Sanchez, Grant Stoneman. I always try to do this where I try to read the thing down, but also try to put it in order. It's not going to happen. I'm just going to go to the lineup that, thank you, Matt Hands. I've been making fun of you, but you put this together for me, so I appreciate it. We had Koke Vegas in net. We had Aldair Sanchez at left back with Hamani Diop and Grant Stoneman in the in the center backs, with Nick Scardina on the right back spot. We had Zachary Haribow and Amos Shapiro-Thompson as your double pivot, with Noah Fuson left wing, Pity Rodriguez as your attacking midfielder, Jorge Quazera at right wing, and JJ Williams up top. So, Andrew, lineup comes out. It's 3 p.m. We've had some lovely beers at one of my favorite bars in the world, Navarre Rez. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. And then you see this. What did you think?
My first reaction was, this is a stronger lineup than I was expecting. And I certainly was not expecting JJ to start. I thought for sure that it would be a Logan Dorsey game. And then the other one that really took me back was Sanchez. The fact that Aldair can't do anything to be able to get a breather except go down 2-0 at halftime, I guess. The guy just is getting run ragged. And I really thought this would be a match that we might give him some time to rest, maybe test out what it would look like to have a back four with maybe Hamadi or some other option at left fullback. So I was surprised to see him out there, but in general, my initial reaction was, there is some rotation here, but it's definitely stronger than I was expecting for this game.
Yeah, I mean, to Matt, we'll get to like the game, the performance, the result, but Matt Jean says if Rivera started, we would have won 5-0. What do you think about that?
There's a very good chance. He's got to earn his stripes, right?
Might as well. I mean, yeah, I would say one thing I strongly agree with you on. So one, like, I was shocked to see JJ. I figured this was going to be more of a game kind of similar to how we approached Hartford, where it'd be very rotated, but more of the subs versus, the kind of the team we saw against CD Valnes. Did I get that right?
Violence.
Violence.
Yeah.
My Portuguese pronunciation is rough. Sorry, my Portuguese listeners here, but yeah, I think the ones that really stood out to me, like Amos Haribow, I don't think we've ever seen them play as midfield pivots. So that was interesting, especially stylistically compared to Clay and Hugo. I think there's a lot to talk about there. And then, yeah, like with Sanchez, like obviously, like he's having a great year. We don't want him to be out, but actually was like, this is the right type of game to give him a breather, just so we can actually see what else we have behind him, because right now we're experimenting with this new formation. I mean, I have a lot of love for the formation itself. It's just like, we need to make sure that we have, it's not just contingent on a couple players being able to play in specific positions. And, we saw in the second half that, Diop can play out there, but yeah, I mean, like Aldair, he's young, he's got those young legs. So hopefully he can, keep going. But yeah, it's tough when he's played almost every minute so far this season, and you got to give him a lot of credit for that.
And that's the way Clay was. Clay had basically been playing every minute too, and then he rotated last week, which I was fine with. I expected him to come back in this game. He didn't, which I found odd, but I also get it given the opponent that maybe just give him a little bit of extended rest and put him in the second half. But I was thinking about this yesterday, looking at this lineup, understanding the circumstances were different, but what was a stronger lineup, this lineup or the one that we fielded against Hartford in the first USL Cup match, which was probably the most important match of the group?
I think this one. I mean, JJ is up top. That's kind of the answer to me.
Yeah, I mean that's the key indicator there. But obviously that one, we were coming off of a midweek match against Charleston, but we did have a full week until the next game. It was a derby. It was on paper the toughest game that we had in the group against the strongest opponent away. And this one, a week to rest before, a week to rest after. So I get it, but it did feel like, it felt like this was a stronger lineup than what we had in Hartford, where Hartford felt almost like a little bit of a throwaway. And let's see if we can get to the second half and make something happen, which to their credit, they did. Granted, it was in the penalty shootout where they got that extra point. It was just, that's why I just thought this game, given the way he treated that Hartford game, even though it was on short rest, would be softer of a lineup than what was put out here. But I was happy to see it. I mean, we have a week off. I was like, good, let's bury them. Like, this is a team we should bury. Let's bury them.
Yep. I mean, it's that, and it's also like with the draw in the penalty win in Hartford, we technically, you'd probably argue, had the upper hand on the group, and like
Right.
it was kind of ours to take. And obviously, this is kind of one of the, us and probably Brooklyn are probably the two next, not us, Portland and Brooklyn were probably the two next best teams. So, getting a result here when we're hosting Brooklyn would have been big. I guess if you're watching this, I hope you know the result, but. Yeah, we'll go from there. And just to answer a question in the chat from Ben John says, Nick normally backfield. Nick, yes. So earlier in the season, you probably saw him playing more of like a right wing back, which is a little higher up the pitch. With the new formation, he's playing more as a fullback, which I personally love. So as we get into the game, I thought it was funny. So I would say so before the game started, you mentioned that you picked them to win 4-1. I did the same thing. I've been nervous because anytime I picked us to win this year, we've lost. Every time I picked us to lose, I think we've either won or draw. So like, I was like, that might've been a big mistake. I then doubled down before the game. I went for a run and I ended up at Fitzpatrick Stadium, which you can actually just go and run there and like do whatever you want. Like it's just like a track. And I decided to make a video saying that we were going to shellac them. So again, a lot of this we can just preface is my fault. But so with the game itself, I would say at the game, I don't know that with the baby, with a lot of stuff going on, remember it. So I actually did a rewatch, and I thought the funniest part about this, because of, I would say all of these notes are twinged with like what I knew happened in the game, but there's a lot of mentions of like the team didn't take it seriously, which I thought was funny because JJ was actually sniffing smelling salts before kickoff, which I couldn't stop laughing because I was like, for a game that like, I don't know that we played horribly and the team kind of didn't look very professional out there. JJ doing smelling salts before, I was like, well, at least he, I guess, took it like preparedly wise seriously. So that just was a very fun anecdote from the broadcast. We started off, Giap kicks it directly out of bounds. Wasn't even that deep. I think that kind of sums up the start of his day. And then, just 3 minutes in, everything looked very frantic to start. We see a couple guys get muscled off the ball. 3 different RIFC players don't track the run. And the bald king kid, lights us up for the first one. So I will play that video now.
There's no audio on my end, just so you know.
So obviously, extremely frustrating way for us to start this one, Andrew.
Yes, very. No, I couldn't hear the audio. I couldn't tell if you could.
So no one could hear the audio.
If it came through, it was very, very quiet.
Oops.
So that's why I couldn't tell if we were on mic unmuted or not. But no, it was very frustrating. I mean, we were still kind of settling in, and they just fell asleep at the wheel. And the more I look at this too, and watching the highlight over, you basically had the guy crossing the ball, and then you had Kid there that buried it. Those were 2 players that were on that side of the field, and there were 6 RIFC shirts that were surrounding them. 2 that went, actually no, because it was the 3rd guy, right, that they tracked, the other striker. Mm-hmm. And it was just a lot of standing around, no communication between the defenders to ensure that it was getting picked up. Fuson didn't track back. Scardino was Aldier was late getting there, but really I think my feeling is looking at that, it was more of the center backs themselves that just didn't communicate well enough because they both went to that near side runner. So lack of communication. And I was thinking back at this, and maybe you have this answer because I didn't look it up, but how much time has Grant and Hamidi spent together? Because it's been mostly Karifa back there, right? So was it just miscommunication from two guys that aren't used to being paired together?
Andrew Quadros, my man. Well, so I'm hyping this up as if I know the answer. I also wrote down. So I talked about this last week where we saw some communication issues, especially on their first goal with between Frank and I think Grant and Karifa and a few people back there. I was trying to. I wanted to look up today. I didn't have time, but how many different combinations we've seen in the back four so far? Basically, the only thing that hasn't changed is Aldair, but everything else back there has been just a constant rotation in cast of characters. And yeah, I mean, there just has been no consistency back there, which again, and I mentioned this last episode, especially center back, that's the one where you really see a pairing kind of just be the pairing. And it's for the same reason, communication, for being able to kind of marshal and being at the back of the team gives you the eyes ahead of you. You can see the formation, see where the rest of your team is, and it allows you to really communicate and be those guys. And if they're not in sync, it doesn't allow them to really set the rest of the defense, hold the line, and then also help set up the guys in front of them. So 100% agree that clearly it was a communication problem. And this one, it's the ball goes in the net, everyone's pointing at each other, everyone's mad at each other. And it has to be part of the equation that this is probably our fourth or fifth kind of back line, maybe more, that we've seen this season.
Right. And against Hartford, it was Karifa and Stillman, and they've worked a lot together. So it's really been Karifa and Grant, Karifa and Hamidi. So even in a game where it felt like he was kind of was throwing away, I say that loosely. I mean, he didn't throw away the game, but the way he rotated in that game didn't tell me he was really going for it. So even in that one, against a team like Hartford that really predicates itself on sitting back and then hitting you quick on the counter, you really need to have that strong center back pairing to be able to communicate with each other and be able to set yourself up well defensively in those transition moments. Portland's going to do the same thing. A, that's how they play, and B, being the USL 1 team to our USL Championship team, this is an expectation of this is how they were going to try to approach it. And it didn't feel like we were ready for it right out of the gate. And then the first opportunity that they have, there's a miscommunication on defense. And then it's not like it got corrected throughout the rest of the game, right? They continue to have chances flying right at our defenders. So
don't worry, we'll talk about those.
Yeah. So it's frustrating. It just felt like we can harp on certain players. I personally thought Hamidi had a fucking horrendous game. But in general, it felt like the team setup, they were not set up for success either.
We will also get to that, don't you worry.
So point being, before we get too deep into that, they weren't ready to go. And that's the biggest issue for me, is they weren't ready to go, and it set the table for how the rest of this match went.
Yeah, I mean, and the beautiful news too is that Rhode Island FC has done really well in the first 15 minutes of matches, and when they go down. So no worries, guys. Definitely nothing to worry about. And if you're confused with what I'm talking about, end of last episode, you'll see the slides. And I think we've won one game in the league. This is obviously not the league, but in the league after going down a goal at all, which is very, very good stuff.
In our history.
Yeah, and apologies for the lack of audio on the clips. I don't think you're going to want to hear these anyway, so we'll get past it, but we will work together on this here. But after the goal goes in, it's tough. So personally, I wrote down everything looks really hard to do. Nothing is coming off easily. I have to say, this is just a random note. I don't have anything to attach this back to, but I want to say it I want to put it on the record here. I'm fucking over JJ taking the long throws. I'm also, for the listeners with kids, it's probably going to get more expletive-y as we go. So apologies, but I'm really fucking over JJ taking the long throws. Yeah, he needs to another thing I wanted to look up today, but when JJ takes the long throws, how many players are in the box that have actually scored a single goal for RIFC? Seriously, that, you're having the guy toss the ball into a bunch of players who just have literally never scored a goal for Rhode Island FC. What do we expect to happen?
He is the guy who wins aerial duels. So even when Clay wasn't physically able to throw the ball, I never understood why he was the one taking them. Even if he was the only one capable of getting it in the box, the fact that he's not on the other end of them, he can't catch the ball and throw at the same time, aka Giselle. So
Just
never understood,
like abandon the tactic if you don't have the person to do it. Like
So
it's
the last home
crazy.
match, or was it the last one or the one before? I was sitting next to Timmy in 205, and he went to go take him, and it might have been before Clay was going to take him. I remember saying the same thing to him. I was like, "What? Like, I hate the fact that he's taking them. Nothing comes out of them. And he doesn't really throw it quite far enough to be like for it to be truly dangerous. And B, where it lands, he's the only one that can make anything out of that. So why is he the one taking it? I'm just tired of continuing to throw the ball in the box when it so rarely leads to something. Actually, why don't you just send it short and then try to have someone whip it in on an actual dangerous cross, as opposed to throwing this lollipop up in the air, where even if your guy can get on the other end of it, there's no power behind it for him to do anything with it.
But also the guy best suited to do anything with it is the one throwing it. 100%. I can't get over it. It was just a note I had to make sure was put out there. And as Pawtucket Jay says, if you are a Portland fan, I deeply apologize. I know that you guys are extra sensitive to all sorts of words. So I will, I will apologies there. Yeah, another note, 12 minutes in, we start having some corners. We start getting some pressure. We start just really mixing it up on corners. This is another theme of this episode I'm going to probably harp on a little too much. We actually did finally, after literally the entire world has been talking about certain tactics on corners, like putting a body, not necessarily like messing with the keeper, just around the keeper. We started doing that in this game. We see literally on the first corner that Noah whips one in, and we get like really good scramble in the box and almost kind of get an equalizer right away. So it's nice that we've adapted to like a year-plus-old dialogue that's been happening in the world of the sport, which is great. We've been talking about this on the show a lot. And then Jojea, quite frankly, I think it's his worst game of the season by far. He took two of the worst corners I've ever seen back-to-back from the other side. So we're kind of mixing it up. We're doing all sorts of different stuff on corners. We'll get back to that. But yeah, and then again, the kind of half just continues on. It just seems very strange, like the way that we're set up. It seems like we're trying to go wide. We're trying to really isolate the wingers. We're trying to cross the ball a lot. But like for those of you who weren't there or maybe you watched on TV, that is an unbelievably tiny field. It's actually so tiny that Portland has to have a waiver to play on it, and it's only like limited to 3 years. They actually have to figure out some solution to this at some point, but it's such a small field, and we were playing as if it was like Wembley Stadium, like just massive. This is where, like, I think you said it, like we just weren't set up to succeed. This is where it really unraveled for me, because and you mentioned like Giap had a very brutal game, and there's literally from like 20 to 27 minutes where like there's things happening from him specifically that I really try not to single players out on the show, but like just really silly decisions that he's made over and over and over again, and they were just so heightened in this game because of how small the pitch was, putting just hospital balls into the midfield, crossing on a field where there was no space to cross into, trying to go behind in a field that there's no place to go in behind. I thought it was a very strange game from a player who we saw really good performances from last season, with a couple of these moments where we're seeing more of these moments and not so much the performances that we'd expect.
Yeah, totally agree with all of that. It was one of the things I've written too in the last high chart was about Noah, where I was saying that we saw a really good run from Noah in the second half of the year, but now we've seen a big enough sample size that I'm wondering if what we expect of Noah is a baseline that matched what his height was and not what his standard is. Yep. And maybe we just have expectations that exceed what he actually is as a player. I'm starting to wonder the same thing about Hamidi now, because we saw a relatively small sample size at the end of the year and he was really good. And that's what we expected. And he was the first pick in the MLS Super Draft. Like, we expect him to be a good player. And especially as of late, he hasn't been that player.
No.
So now I'm wondering, who is he? And there were conversations that I was having with family and friends over the past month where people were saying, like, he sucks. Like, why do people love him so much? And I was defending him. But then every week goes by and like I can't defend him anymore. It's like he makes a lot of good plays where he breaks lines and sets up the team on good, attacking chances. But they're mixed in with these horrendous plays that put us in terrible, terrible defensive positions, where he is just passing the ball to the other team, giving them breakaways, breaking down defensively on who he's supposed to be marking. Like, he's just way too loose. And at one point, you were next to me in the game, and we were talking about how he was just sending the ball across the small field every single time without even looking. And then he received the ball, and both of us were just like, wait for it. Sure enough, he didn't even look to see where he was sending it. He just took the ball on his left and just whipped it across to nobody, and then back that came in the other way. So there didn't seem to be like he was learning from it. So I'm wondering if there's I don't want to put this in a bad way, but is there a mental part of his game that's missing, where he doesn't understand how to adapt to a game and actually use his skill set in a way that's going to benefit the team, or is he just going out and playing his game and seeing what happens?
Well, especially when, you're also partnered with, like, knowing your partner and knowing again, this goes back to a little bit of like this chopping and changing in the back line. Like, Grant is not the fastest guy in the league. Like, he's closer to our age than he is to probably Jap's age. And like, constantly putting him in situations where he's sprinting back to his goal is not the best use of Grant. And we are going to see a little bit of that in the 24th minute here, where Portland got on the board. Actually, we're not going to see it because the video doesn't show it. But basically, Portland. Sorry, not Portland. We put a ball into Zach. Zach kind of gets like nothing on it back to our team. They break on us, and then Zach, covering back, ends up clipping their striker, and he goes down for the penalty. We don't have a video of it. I would say extremely questionable call. I don't know if it was the wrong call. I watched the replay so many times when I was watching it back on the rewatch. You just can't. The video quality is just so bad and like not focused on what you needed to focus on. I don't know if it was a foul or not. It looked very questionable in real time. It looked very questionable on the broadcast. But at the end of the day, it was a foul, and I don't have any proof that it wasn't. So, we'll go to what happens after that on the penalty kick. But really unfortunate stuff. So this is Ollie Wright from Portland taking the PK, and he scores. I do have to say, he sorry, I have to say, like, the guys behind me, we were kind of talking about which way he was going to go. I was convinced he was going to go right, and so was Koke, unfortunately. So I do have to just put my hand up and say I was wrong on this one. But Andrew, what'd you make on the second goal here?
It's a bounce kick. I was hoping Koke would come up with it, but you can't expect him to make that save.
No.
And then the foul itself, in real time, it didn't feel like a foul. It felt like two guys that just kind of tripped over each other in the box, which is not a foul. But looking back on the replay again, like I can't tell. I was looking at the highlights. They only showed a couple different angles of it. It happens really quick, and even when you slow it down, the camera's moving too fast, so you really can't get. It's hard to tell. So it felt like the referee took a couple seconds to make the decision. Like he was unsure himself. The ball kind of continued on, and then he decided to point to the spot. But that's one of those where even if we had VAR, it might be like the proper answer might have been stick with the call in the field.
Yeah, so it's a tough one for sure. But yeah, I mean, from there, the one other thing I need to call out here is we fucking switched the wingers again for 7 minutes. I'm starting to count because now I have a dog with bone on this. Switch wingers again for 7 minutes. You and I know the same amount of why that's happening. And then also in this game, I wrote down by the 35th minute, we saw Noah take a corner from the left-hand side. We saw Quizera take a few from the right-hand side. We also saw what's up? Basically, we kept seeing like different corner tactics between in-swingers and out-swingers and just different players taking them. And this continued into the second half. And the thing, again, why both of these things bother me so much is it was a team that was just trying stuff versus feeling like they had a game plan to execute some, to pounce on some kind of weakness that they saw with Portland. So I think this is kind of my summary of the match, and we'll keep talking about this probably a lot throughout this episode, but it just seemed like we didn't really know how we wanted to break them down. We were just going to try a bunch of stuff, and I thought that maybe our talent or our athleticism or something was going to carry us through. So I was very baffled at why these opposite strategies and just truly opposite ideas. Again, we talk about in-swingers versus out-swingers. We talk about, wingers having inverted, which again is your stronger foot's on the inside so that you can kind of almost take the shot in versus kind of being your strong foot on the outside and you're whipping in crosses. Like we just were trying all sorts of stuff, which like I'm not opposed to in general, but like some of these things are like in practice, you can figure these out.
Yeah, I don't mind variety to keep people on their toes. The problem is none of it was working, and especially Jojea in the first half. The very, like you said, the 12th minute, there was that.
Also, really, Jojea, if you're listening, this is Andrew talking. Just remember,
I praised them in my last blog, which is again probably why this is all just gone downhill since then. But Noah's in the first, that 12th minute was very dangerous, like you talked about earlier. I also think that the way he hit it, it didn't leave the ground very high. And it kind of nestled in between players, and there was a mess in front of goal. It kicked out to Aldair. Aldair had a good chance. All of Jojea's were similar, except he couldn't clear the first guy. And he kept trying it over and over and over. It was like on the ground to the first guy clearing it, on the ground, first guy clearing it. So eventually they moved away from that, which I'm fine with. But they don't really have anybody that can hit a corner on an outswinger with any kind of venom, which you kind of need. When it's an outswinger, either you're crowding in front of that goalie, so that way there's a guy that's isolated that could try to hit it back toward goal, or you have to get it with enough power so that way the guy can turn that power around and hit it back into the goal. Whereas if an in-swinging one, you can try to find someone on that back post who just needs to get a touch on it to get it toward goal. They've, in every year that we've been watching RIFC, have they really had anyone who's been able to put corners consistently in a place on the outswinger where they can actually do something with it? Like it either goes way too long or can't clear the first post. So I would rather them just keep trying in-swingers to the back post and see what happens. You know, the penalty spot to the back post, just try to have it land there because you don't need to hit it perfectly. You don't need to hit it with a lot of power. You just need to get it into a certain spot, and hopefully one of your guys can show up on the other end of it. So, again, I don't mind them trying new things, but it just felt like not much was working until the Amos one at the end, which worked really well, and then they were starting to...
I was going to say, we found a guy in this game.
Yeah, but we've seen this before. Was it the Cup game against Hartford? The first time when we scored on two corners? I can't remember what game it was, but we scored on two corners, right? That was the double chicken game.
That was the game I was there.
All right, so those we were like, all right, we found something.
Yes. And then we stopped doing it.
Then we stopped doing it. It's like, oh, well, people have figured this out. We're not going to try this anymore. So I don't understand it. Like nothing else is working. Just try what works. Just get that down. And then when teams adjust to it, then do something else.
Yes. Thank you. Like, and usually like if you just end up getting really good at it, as I've seen personally, like you actually can just keep scoring goals that way. And actually it works out really well so far for you. You know, just to wrap up the first half here, again, the winger switched back. You know, we did see Jujea almost score from a great cross in from Noah. You know, really thought he should have scored there. It's tough, but like, again, going into halftime, it felt like a very deserved issue. I also had one other one, like there was a point in pretty early in the match that JJ like very lazily pressed them and actually like forced a turnover from him up top. And I think that one of the other crazy things about this match is we've seen this team press really well all year, and they just abandoned that. They said, this feels really small. We're going to let you make it feel as big as possible.
Yeah, and it's not just this year too. I've always liked when they pressed, and I understand
it has been from year one. We've talked about this,
right? And I understand the idea of your. And I think John Morris even wrote about this at one point. Like you're mixing up your defensive styles throughout the course of the game. You might go in the high press. You might move to a mid block. You might try a low block. You might try some trigger pressing. Like try to throw the other team. Just get them on keep them on their toes and not know what they're going to get out of that. But the teams always look more dangerous when they're in a high press. And when you're on a small field against a team of lesser quality, that's the time that you should be doing it. Like me, my 9-year-old son, when I'm watching him play and I'm telling him to play, I'm like, just go and attack the guy because he's not as good as you guys are. And even if he is, more times than not, he's going to mess it up. Everybody's just high press. And like, I understand that's kids. It's not this, but the difference in quality and given what this team has shown when they do high press, it works really well. Just try it, especially when you're down a goal. Like you don't have a lot of ground to cover. So just try the high press. It's not going to be that much to try to recover ground if you overshoot somebody.
It's also just been one of our better weapons. Like it's something that this team's actually genuinely like pretty good at in this league, and it's worked really well. So to abandon that, and especially in this game, again on a small field, you have the extra benefit of like almost like an extra defender out there because of how tight everything is. So zero idea why we did that. But going into halftime, obviously 2-0 to Portland. Here we had Rhode Island FC with 59% possession, which is our kryptonite. We had 7 shots to their 3, but we had 3 shots on target to their 2. Obviously, both theirs went in. They did have 3 big chances to our 0. Sorry, Mad Hands. To 70% of their passing accuracy to our 77. They had 8 fouls to our 6. They had 0 corners to our 4. I mean, Andrew, where does this rank in like worst halves you've seen?
So I stumbled to the back of our section when Kerwin and Hans were doing terrorist talk and Hans was talking, and I abruptly interrupted them to yell out, "This is the worst half I've seen this team play." Like, this is up there. I mean, the second half against Tampa Bay early in the first half of the season was a stinker. I mean, they've had bad ones, but given the expectations, given the opponent, given the circumstances of the game, the importance of this relative to what it means for our chances to stay alive in the cup, like they laid an egg. This was a bad first half, and that's not to say they didn't create any chances or that they looked completely lifeless, but they just were not ready for this match. And Portland was very deserving of their 2-0 lead. It was a very, very poor half.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I wrote down here, like, it was just generally embarrassing. It was lazy defending, poor tactics, and just very bad decision making from a team that, like, you can talk about rotation. You can talk about so many things. Like, we had a very professional team out there, and they did not play like it. Like, if you had asked someone, I actually had people text me that, like, I didn't know watched any of this, and they were like, "Are Portland and Rhode Island FC in like the same league?" It's like, no, actually, Rhode Island FC is the team that is in the higher league. Like, very much like higher payroll, higher all the things that come with that too. Like, let's be clear. Like, there is a difference in the leagues for many different things, and like, yeah, it was just generally embarrassing. Like, it was a game that, like, I think all of us at halftime were like, they didn't try. Like, that's what it felt like. And like, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But like, they were not set up for success. Like, tactically, adjustments in game, like it just felt like they were just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And like, it's just tough, right? You go down at like 1-0, 3 minutes in. It's like, okay, like you have an uphill battle to climb, but like you need to then get the next goal. We just Yeah, and we let them have the second one, and again, it was a questionable call, but, like, at the end of the day, like, going into halftime 2-0 did not feel like a crazy scoreline.
No, it felt very much deserved. And I was talking to a family member yesterday about the game, and I said something very similar to what you just said, which is that if watching that game, it looked like Portland was a USL championship level team because of how we made them look. That this was a deserved 2-0 win. And I think that goal probably came so early that you don't really abandon your tactic or do anything. You just continue on. So they didn't
I guess, Andrew, not to cut you off, but my issue with the actually entire approach to the first half is, what the fuck was our tactic? I don't think we actually like had a good approach to how we were going to take this game. I don't know if we were either like too cocky, like we are just the higher level team. We've beaten this team twice, even though like for those of us who were in Lewiston last year, like that wasn't an easy game. Like that was like, obviously we beat them pretty handily at home, but that wasn't an easy game. I just felt like we just kind of rocked up to this game and thought we were going to figure it out. And then all of a sudden we're throwing shit at the wall to try to figure it out.
So I was going to save this for later, but on that theme, you talked earlier about them trying to play wide on the smaller pitch. It just felt like Connor went into this saying, we're going to play our game. We're going to not look at what the other team is doing. We're not going to look at how they play or how they're going to have to beat us. We're not going to look at the circumstances of what the field is like and how we need to set ourselves up. We're just going to go and play our game and let them adjust to us. And when they're playing their game and they're beating us in the head with what they're doing, but they had multiple chances to score. It wasn't just these two. They had more chances to score, and they probably should have scored another one or two. And there was no adjustments. And so it felt like Portland watched the game tape and said, all right, this is the way we have to beat Rhode Island. And Rhode Island, this probably isn't true, but this is what it feels like. It feels like they went into this saying, we're the better team. We have the better players. We're in the higher division. We're just going to play our game and make them beat us, which you see at certain levels of professional sports, right? That the better team is usually just like, we're not going to adapt. You're going to have to beat what you're going to have to adjust to what we're doing, and you're going to have to beat us. And there's a cockiness about that, and that works when you're playing really well and really cohesively. But they haven't been that. They've been all over the place this season, and they haven't been in great form over the past several weeks. So just go in here and expect that because you're a better team, that you don't have to adjust. So there's two things, right, that could have happened. Either they went into it with that mentality, or this was their best attempt at trying to combat what Portland was doing, and they failed miserably. I don't know which one is worse. Not setting up a tactic or setting up a shit tactic. Like, which one's worse?
I think like not setting up one is just pure like you're not doing your job. Setting up a shit one can be fine. I think the other issue I have is like, we'll talk a lot more about like, who's maybe to blame in this, but the players are plenty good enough, plenty talented enough, and plenty experienced enough to like, they should have the ability to deal with these challenges on the pitch. And it just didn't seem like they had the ability to either. And it's just like, you guys are professionals who have all played at very high levels throughout your entire lives. Like, there should be also more to that. Like, I can't, we'll go, I don't want to put it on the players.
I don't know. A proper tactic from Portland against us, where they're punching us in the mouth on the counter, and we're not prepared for it, on a small field against a team that was determined, it might not be as easy as like, let's just play our game. We can rise above this.
Oh my God. Wait, sorry. I need to just if I think I'm maybe it sounded like I was sitting on the fence. I think this is like one of Kano's worst like moments he's had as a coach here. Like tactically inept, like genuinely not doing his job. Like him and his staff should very much like should look deeply into this game and just have a like what the fuck happened here, because we did not set up our team to do anything, because every single thing they tried in that first half was awful. I want to make sure I'm very clear about where I truly stand on this. Like I don't want to sit on the fence on that. That is very much my point.
Yeah, I hear you. The point that you're making more recently is like, do the players have some culpability in being able to manage through this because they're professionals? And I do agree with that to a degree. But I think that there's a certain the challenge is of a certain magnitude because of the position that they were put in. And I don't know that the players themselves could have dug themselves out outside of just like one or two stellar individual efforts that led to a goal.
No, for sure. And I am going to move us along because we are now we're touching on the hour mark already, and we have a lot to go here. Yeah, we have a lot to go here. We're going to hustle through the second half a bit. But yeah, I would say like, so at halftime, we do get some changes. We do get Dorsey, Yao, and Hugo for Haraval, Noah, and Aldair. Honestly, I thought it was a fascinating sub because I would have said like, two of those guys at least were some of our better players in the first half. So I thought that was strange. But then, yeah, so you'd think like going into halftime, team is going to get a really stern talking to. They're going to come out with a better attitude. They're going to approach this game differently. Boy, oh boy, do like 1 minute in, we see that is not going to happen. Joe J gets one of the stupidest cards I've seen in a while. And I've railed on a couple of our veterans on this team for getting really stupid cards. JJ, the one in Louisville, I thought was very bad decision making on his part. Joe J gets one because like, he called the ref over to like around like the placement of the ball and then just kept arguing his way into a yellow card where the guy literally was like, I wasn't going to bother you, but now I have to put it back. It just was like, holy shit, we just are not taking this seriously. Couldn't believe that. And then he basically fucking kicks the ball out of bounds. That was the worst part. It's like, it was all for nothing. So, I really thought he should have come off at halftime. I thought he had a really bad first half. Ends up playing the full 90. I thought Noah of the two wingers was better. Everyone could say, oh, you love Noah. Just again, I literally Fat Mob had them higher. Like I can't even, whatever on that one.
It was better.
We then start playing corner kick roulette again. So we got Pity putting balls in now. We got Amos taking them now, which Amos, to his credit, like all of us, like I'm like, holy shit, he almost put an Olympico in, which you don't see often. And that's when you score immediately from the corner. And yeah, at the 54th minute, it's like we're playing a League One team, and like we look like the team who has never played together before. There's no rhythm. There's no consistent ideas. It's just a team trying to figure it out. We then get Busy coming in for Pity. Pity was really struggling, so it wasn't shocking. I think the big kind of sub that people, I think of talking about was like, why didn't we see Leo Afonso at all? But in the 61st minute, finally we do, after 12 different corner kick combinations, we finally found the dudes. So we will check that out now. So it's a beautiful ball by Amos Shapiro-Thompson, to your point, an outswinger, whipped to the back post. And we had three different gentlemen there, a gaggle of them, to the back post to see them lining up. So, Andrew, what did you take on the goal there?
I felt in that moment that we were going to at least get a tie out of this. There was still half an hour left, and it felt like they were starting to pick up some momentum. The changes at halftime, I actually, for as much as we've been shitting on the tactic in this game, I thought that they were good changes. I thought changing the shape of the team, going to the back three, having Logan work off of JJ up top, I thought was starting to generate more. And that could be a result of Portland starting to sit back a little bit with a 2-goal lead going into the second half. But it did feel like they were starting to become a more dangerous team. And at that moment, we felt really good. I was on top of my bleacher, waving my scarf around, thinking, all right, this is it. We're coming back. So it was a good moment for the team, and I really wanted to see them use this as a stepping stone to really take hold of the game. You can argue whether or not they did, because Portland still had their chances after that. But in this moment, that was a fun 60 seconds in the crowd there.
Yeah, that was great. I think this was around the time of the game where like we were trying to figure out what to do with my son because he was like getting all worked up. Shout out to Nick from the Portland Hearts of Pine who gave us a very kind situation there. But yeah, I mean, from here on out, you're down a goal. You kind of are starting to sub in some of the guys. Like people are saying Hugo coming on. We looked immediately better, which is totally true. We then see Clay come on for Grant. Hugo moving back to center back. In my frustration, I wrote, I'm realizing that my Hugo to right back idea would never work because Kano could never coach it. And in the 83rd minute, we then get, back-to-back plays with like Busy and Scardina not burying the ball. We also earlier had Logan Dorsey kind of going through on net from a JJ pass where he kind of scuffs it. Like he really almost could have had a brace almost immediately. So, we see, a couple of chances for Rhode Island, but, throughout the half, it just was like us with a lot of the ball, not really making much of it. And then Portland kind of countering, having some, quarter to half chances there. But all in all, like the kind of half kind of sputters out and we end up with a final of 2-1.
And to be fair, and Timmy called this out in his player ratings where he didn't rate any players, that the goalie on the other team did make a lot of very good saves. Like he had a very good game. So they were,
so rewatching, I don't know how much like he did, but we just were kicking the ball right at the guy. I have to say, like, just a complete side note, watching the broadcast, what a mustache this guy had.
Yeah, he did.
Awful stuff. Like, you shouldn't do it, but what a mustache.
Yeah. But no, I thought he kept them in the game. Like we created chances that we didn't bury them, obviously, but he did his part in making sure that we didn't bury them. Like
I'm not like the guy had a good game. It's just more like I don't know that we made him work that hard. Like it wasn't like a game where you're like Tim Howard against Belgium in that World Cup where you're like, oh my god, this guy's like a superhero. Like I'm just like,
yeah. But I will say that in this league or in the USL at large, like those go in sometimes, and these times they didn't go in, but. Like we talked about after the game, like when you put yourself in this position where you come out of the gate flat and you're down 2-0, like you need everything to go right.
Yep.
So if this was a 0-0 match at this point and you weren't scoring those, then you can see how the rest of the game turns out because you can still build some momentum. But when you're down 2-0, you get one back here, but then you're still chasing for the rest of the game, and because you're chasing, you're leaving yourself exposed to the counterattack, which they were several times.
For sure, but again, it kind of. With the back and forth, it still sputters out to that 2-1 win for the Portland Hearts of Pine. Expected goals were pretty even on this one. This is from SofaScore, so take it with a grain of salt. But 1.45 to Portland to 1.23 for Rhode Island. Rhode Island had 58% possession, 18 shots to Portland's 5, 7 shots on target to Portland's 3. Portland had 4 big chances to Rhode Island's 2. Pass accuracy was 65% for Portland, 74% for Rhode Island. Fouls were pretty even at 13-14, and corners were 1 corner for Portland and 10 for Rhode Island FC. Amos Shapiro-Thompson did get the Rhode Island man of the match for FOTMob with his 1 assist. Also some great just general corners. I thought he, I think it was his first 90 of the season, or close to 90 for the season. So good for Amos there. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a really, really tough way to lose, especially in this this competition where kind of a loss almost like eliminates you from the competition in general. So, we have a lot of reactions, and the reason I split up the second half so much is there's a lot of meat to talk about because of your Rhode Island FCs and your good, bad, uglies, which we will get to. So, Andrew, I know you have a lot of thoughts. I'm gonna pause. I think we're gonna work them in the comments here because gonna be honest, you guys almost none of you followed the format and just gave us pure talking points. So this is going to be a lot of fun. But I'm gonna start off on Twitter here. So we got Mike Moniz with good, the traveling fans. You guys are amazing. Bad, the team play. Everything looks too robotic and structured. Players need to use more creativity, be more desperate. Ugly, the finishing, despite the lack of effort in RIFC having some clear-cut chances that should have been buried. His RIFC in 3 was lack of heart. Next up. Oops. My bad, everybody. You're seeing the sausage be made way too much in this episode. Cool. All right, so next up we got I'll go Instagram first. I'm trying to remember where the real juicy stuff is. It wasn't Instagram. Whoops. All right, so here's your first one, Andrew. I told you I got some curveballs theory. So we got Ruben, our friends at Ruben Front here. So it feels like a totally dysfunctional team culture when only a few of the players come over to acknowledge your traveling support while the majority just slink away into the locker room. Just a total lack of respect for your fan base. That speaks to Kano's leadership or lack thereof. So Andrew, so I will admit at this point that we had to dip out a little early for the kiddo, but you were here for this part, and I know a lot of people had a lot of thoughts on this. So, what was your take on, people coming over after the game and kind of the acknowledgement of the support, from the coaching staff on down?
Yeah, and you may recall one of our higher viewed episodes of last season was the funeral after the Harvard Derby match. And that was a big talking point there. And I went on a rant about basically what Robert Front just said in that game where Coca came over, Maxi came over for like a quick high and left. Kano never showed his face. And I lost it. I lost it on the pod. I lost it in the stadium where I went over and talked to Coca for a while, which I'm not one to do. I don't go over just to go and vent. But I was pissed off because we went over there. We supported the team like we always do. They were some of the best traveling supporters in the league. And the team just sulks and pouts when they lose. And they all just disappeared. And that starts with Kano. And Koke has to be there, and he has to be the one to take it.
Yep.
Because he's protecting his players, and he knows, I'm sure this is happening internally. He's probably looking at that, and his team is saying, I'm not fucking going out there. We just lost. I don't want to deal with this bullshit. And so he's covering for them, and he's going over and talking to the fans. And I was mad, very, very mad about it last year. I'm not quite as mad this year, but I still think it's along the same lines where you had players that kind of came from their sideline, maybe made it halfway to where we were at, just gave it a couple of these, and then turned around and walked back. And the Gamos spent more time. Kano, to his credit, came over and spent a little bit more time. He probably heard some chants he didn't like, and then ended up dipping out.
We'll talk about that one day.
Yeah, so I'll reserve that one. And then Koke stuck around, and then Koke has to take the heat for everybody. And what I said last year after the Harvard match was, I think Koke, given his background, the fact that he played in Spain, that he understands that culture where you have an obligation to your fans to greet them, to thank them for to be grateful for their presence there. They're paying your bills. They're there to support you everywhere they go. People drove 3+ hours to go and support them.
When gas is like $4.50 a gallon.
Yes, exactly. That was like a $1,000 gas bill to go up there. So there is a responsibility for them to go and acknowledge the fans. And what happened in Hartford last year felt like there was no acknowledgement outside of Koke. What happened this year felt like there was a marginal one where somebody told them that just make sure you go and give them a little hello, and then they turned around and walked away. So to me, that it's not it's not sufficient at all. And my opinion is aligned with Robin Franz, which is I think this is a reflection of the coach. I think that Kano is very pouty. When he loses, go back and listen to press conferences, right? Raising Anchors played it. We've played clips. The team has posted some of them. They usually don't post them when they lose because he's fucking pouty. He gets upset. He doesn't want to answer questions. He's very short. He doesn't want to deal with it. And that's a reflection that reflects down to his players. That's how they react too. And we had this discussion a few weeks ago about the paddle and whether or not we should do the man of the match paddle after the game anymore at home, because when they lose, they don't want to go and take it. And some people like Matt Hands, who's on the screen now, and others have said, well, this is really for the fans, so just shut up and take it. That was kind of the general message. So if that's the case, you have to apply that here too. Like, it doesn't matter that you lost. I'm not telling you that you have to come over here and listen to everybody's complaints about how the game went. You don't have to go and have a conversation with every single fan or have to stand there and get yelled at. I understand that. But you come over and you spend more than 5 seconds greeting and applauding the fans and thanking them for their presence, because we make ourselves known everywhere we go. Every match that we go to, we are loud. We bring in drums when we're allowed to. We support the team. And even when they lose, we do the best that we can to make sure that they hear us and that we're supporting them. And Connor himself has acknowledged it in certain games of we felt the energy from the fans. So you can't do that. And then when you lose, be pouty bitches about it. And then just give it a quick hello and then leave and say that you fulfilled your responsibilities. And Koke understands that, and that's why he's coming over. But the rest of them need to too. And I want a coach who's going to go over and tell each one of his players all of you are going to go over and you're going to stand there for at least a minute minimum and just hear them out, applaud, thank them, and then go out. But it very much felt to me like Saturday was a check the box exercise where they just did the very bare minimum to say that they could do it, and then they pieced out. Aside from Koke and Amos and maybe Clay, I can't really remember how long he stuck around for. So I agree. I think this is a reflection of the coach, and I think it's a reflection of the way that he manages this group of men.
Yeah, that's very well said. I mean, again, I think there's some, I don't know if it's arguing in the chat, but I very much, I think we're all similar on the same page. We're like, no one's expecting people to come over and talk forever. And it's really just coming over and acknowledging the fact that 180 people drove hours to come support you in a quote unquote hostile environment on the road to really bring the fight for you. And I quite frankly, like, brought more energy than you fucking did on the pitch on this one. And, frustrating that after what saw, and like people are saying, well, we had to go through in the stands, which, like, whatever about that. But like, again, it's just a showing of appreciation of like, these are your most diehard fans who came and supported you. And not to say that if you weren't there, you're not diehard, but there's a very, very low bar of minimum level here. And again, this goes back, I think, to your point, the leadership, and like Koke is trying his best, but it's on the coach and the person signing the fucking paychecks to make sure the players are doing that. And, we haven't seen it. It's been, as you mentioned, multiple times. And it's very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating. And, I think it speaks to a weird culture, and, a culture that, performances like yesterday come out of. So it's very frustrating. Getting back to the RIFC and 3, and this is not the end of these conversations, folks. There's more RIFCs and 3s that pin this, kind of bring these things up. But we got Booth Hill brewing here with "This Ain't Working," mediocrity at its finest. Seriously, what is the problem with this team? They have talent, yet can't put anything together consistently. It's so frustrating. Then we have Terrace finishing us up on Instagram with RIFC and 3, not what we would have wanted. Sorry, he said not what we, and he put what we together wanted. Have to always applaud people who make creative use of the format. Getting over to Facebook here, which we had a bunch of conversations on. So we got Larry Brown here with "Hard to watch, no chemistry midfield, start Clay every time." And I know there's a lot of talk on the Facebook post about Clay and why he isn't starting. Has been 2 games in a row he hasn't started. Last game we're like, maybe he's being rotated. Now he's back in the Clay doghouse, which makes absolutely no sense. We got Bruce again with same old story. We got Derek Turner here with "Good weather and that empanada food truck I found. Bad the first half for sure. Ugly team running off the field and not even acknowledging the fans who traveled up, except Koke and I think Clay, as we also have to mention Amos." So, and then Don, Mrs. Poole said, Koke, Clay, and Amos for sure.
I'm sorry I missed the empanada truck, by the way, because I saw him, we walked in, and I really wanted to get an empanada, and then I forgot about it. They looked really good.
Yeah, and just to, again, here, Don Lindbergh repeats, like, sad that the same 2 or 3 players come over to see the supporters. What kind of starting lineup was that? This team is so dysfunctional. And he said Portland is a class act. But I got a good one from Chris Peterson here. So very questionable coaching. So we had minimal team acknowledgement, which we talked. And he said, please beat Brooklyn. The very questionable coaching. We touched on it a bit this episode, but like, we talked about how a lot of this all comes down to kind of that same person. And, the chat has brought it up a few times, and we do have to bring it up. Usually I would say, like, when we're saying that we want the players to come over, sometimes there have been moments where things have been said, and like, especially like Irvin has, the president of Defiance 1636 has like given words to the team. But mostly it's a lot of clapping, really. It's like a show of kind of love and everything. But apparently yesterday there was some not love. There was some kind of chants about Kano out. It's a lot. It's a lot to hear from, especially the away support. These are kind of more of the really super dedicated fan group. So, I mean, Andrew, with, I think in this episode a lot, we talked about questionable coaching. We heard some dissatisfaction both in the chat, both in our comments, both at the game itself. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and have you do the hot seat meter that you and Timmy have done in the double pivot, but like, what were your thoughts on kind of the clear expression of, disappointment from the fans with Kano?
I understood it. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but that's partly because of like, well, what is that replacement going to be? but and I don't think that the results so far this year in a vacuum necessarily warranted. It's the fact that this resume is building up of what this has become in the regular season, the way that he's treated the games, the way that he's treated the fans after the games. So I understand the sentiment, and I'm not there, but I'm trekking along toward that because it feels like tactically, you had asked the question in our internal Discord, which I gave an answer to, which is think about the entirety of Rhode Island FC with Kano as the head coach. How many games could you say that he was tactically better than the other team? That he came to the game with a better tactic than the other team. I can think of 2 or 3 times that we played Charleston.
I have a caveat to that. I think Charleston doesn't even count because like the way they play actually just feeds into the way we should be playing more. So it actually is like out of his hands.
Yeah, I mean, in that playoff game, I think he did a good job with having Chico shadow Mark Hannes, and like there were things that he did in that game that I think were a great job. But then he ended up getting his ass beat in the next game against Colorado Springs, which other circumstances with there's a lot that went into it. So it's hard to say whether or not it was a bad tactic or not. But in general, you look at this, and I can't think of many games where it was just like he nailed the tactic. Maybe the result wasn't there, but he had the right approach. There's so many times that we're looking at it saying, well, why did we do this? Or why didn't we do this more? So if he's not there tactically, we've seen examples last year where he doesn't get along with players. Players have left the team, pushed to left the team to leave the team, hasn't been able to figure out how to integrate really good talent in his team with Maxey last year and with others. And there's growing frustration or a sense of frustration that I'm seeing and that we're hearing from other players that are on the field. So players are frustrated with him. Fans are frustrated with him. He's not setting up the team tactically. He's not providing a fun product to watch on the field at home. The regular season has been a mess in 2 out of 3 seasons, and even first half of the initial season, which they get a pass for given the fact it was their inaugural season.
Sure.
And then this whole mess of how we're treated as fans in these matches where we're traveling to. So there's a growing body of evidence that says maybe he's not cut out for this. And I'm getting there. Like I will keep going back to, well, what is the alternative? But I can understand anyone who feels that he shouldn't be here anymore because he's not doing. And maybe it's a function of being the general manager and being the coach.
Well, Andrew, the other thing too, like I think we almost forget, this is his first head coaching job. He's never done this before.
But that's why I give him more slack.
This was an experiment. Like,
that's why I give him more slack. Was like he's doing the GM side and the coaching side for the first time. So I said that I didn't want him out last season or going into the season. I wanted them to equip him with what he needed, with the right level of support to be able to do both jobs effectively. But I'm not seeing it tactically. I'm not seeing with the man management. We can see players that are getting upset and frustrated with their roles and the way that the way that they're being utilized. He's underutilized talent in the past. Like all of this stuff just keeps stacking up. And at what point do you say when is enough? And the problem is there's a bit of a power vacuum at the club right now. They don't have they have an acting president. We're waiting to find out who the next.
Who's also the assistant GM.
Who's the assistant GM? We heard in the background that there were arguments between the last president and and Kano about who's really in charge. So if Kano was basically the most the highest person in the hierarchy at the club outside of the president and the owners, then what does that mean? There's no one there to tell him how to change or what they're expecting out of him. Like I would love for Brett Johnson, with his experience at other clubs and with Ipswich Town, to be able to tell Kano, this is how you're supposed to treat your fans after an away match. This is how you should be setting things up. I don't think he's that involved of an owner. And there's no one above Kano to be able to that's going to push on him to say either way. So it's just there feels to be like Kano has just like an active, I don't know what the right word is, not disgust, but dislike for this fan base. Like the whole perspective thing last year, the fact that it felt like he was basically subtweeting us in his Instagram stories because he's upset with the commentary that's been going on and all of this stuff. It just feels like he's almost hostile toward anyone else who questions him. We can't even after a win, Matt Kerwin in the press conference can't ask a question about tactics without him getting shit on, because it's almost like it's beneath Kano to be able to answer a question about tactics. Like, what do you know?
Which is very funny because, one thing I keep going back to what I wrote down, but one thing I wrote down, and I think this is always funny, is like you will see things in Rhode Island FC games tactically that you have never, either haven't seen before or you like don't see. Like why? And like I would say like between the Tie Talk bunch, like we watch like a lot of soccer. You watch a lot of Portugal, like a lot of EPL fans. You have people watch the MLS. You'll see shit that you've never seen before, and you go. So when that's happening, you go, "Wow, is this person really onto something?" Or like, have they found something about the sport that like no one else is seeing? Because if they did, it would probably work, right? Usually when this is happening, we're seeing stuff that just is not working. So it's just really hard to give someone the benefit of the doubt when like they're putting out tactics that you've never seen before and they're just not working at all. Like this switching the wingers mid for 7 fucking minutes every single first half. I've never seen it anywhere else on planet Earth. And then it just doesn't work for us. So like, why are we doing stuff like that? Like, why are we wasting literally the player's brain power on that? Why are we wasting strategies on that?
So what concerns me is that the players themselves have to feel that, right?
Oh,
And
how
I
could
do
you
wonder, even if he does come up with a good tactic, I wonder if there's just like this underlying feeling of just like, does he know what he's doing? Is he really setting us up in the best position to perform and win the game today? I don't know. No one's ever said that to us, but like I do wonder, given some of the stuff that's happened behind the scenes there and the way that they interact with his coach, is there a questioning of is he putting us in the best position to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, and I think the other thing, like I'll keep harping on, is like, as you said, we started off year one, like, and it was it wasn't even that rough. It was okay, and like, obviously there's some built-in excuses, but we have literally never started a season like good, like consistently good. Like this year was like our like this was the best start we've ever had, and apparently like. It's a smaller sample size, but like I think one thing that was frustrating at the beginning of the season, we were talking about the performance. People are like, well, it's still early. This is year 3 of a very core group playing together at the same coach, same kind of style. And it just is consistently not working. And like, yes, we've had some amazing playoff runs. Again, and I will always put my flag in the ground of like that from June on 2024 team, the first year was a very good team. They played very well. They found a style that worked for them. And they were rightfully in the place that they got to, which was the championship game. But last year, like very much never found our groove. Like got very lucky to be in the East Conference final via a shootout. And then again, I just cannot reiterate more that the team we played against told their players like days before the game that they were no longer going to have a job in like a couple of days. So like again, you have to go out there and beat the team, and we did that. But like I can't reiterate how much that was a factor. And then we were the only team to give up a goal to Pittsburgh in their fraudulent championship run. So like it's again a team I've never seen be like tactically phenomenal. Again, there's a game or here or two there, but like we've just never seen a consistent run a form where I think something that like has to be acknowledged is like this is one of the biggest payrolls in the league. Like this is the team with some of the best facilities in the league, some of the best like infrastructure in the league. Like we're not some plucky upstart. Like we actually are one of like the heavyweights of the league in terms of like the actual resources going into this. And the fact that none of that is coalescing to put a product on the field that like week in and week out, we feel like, maybe we don't get the result. Tocano's whole thing about performance versus the result. Great, man. But like, what if the performance and the result are both bad? Because also you can only ride the performance versus result for so long. Like you have to get results. This is a results-based league. Like at the end of the day, like that's all that matters. I am more than happy to give some. I literally did the freaking "Are we good?" slide in like September last year against all of my eyeballs evidence of the season, and like we want this team to be good. Like that is why we're here. That's why we put so much freaking time into like doing this on the side. Not that like we're helping or anything, but like we love this team. We are fans of this team. We want to always be fans of this team. We're gonna be fans longer than any of these players or coaches or anyone are here. But at the end of the day, like we seem to be better. Like this, like yesterday, I think we're also frustrated because it's what we've seen before, because it's a really good encapsulation of what is going on. And that's what makes it so frustrating. This isn't a one-off. I would say like so far this season, you could say like the good results were the one-offs. Like we have not played well. We've had a couple of draws that we're celebrating really heavily, like the draw, which led to a PK win in Hartford, and a draw against the Revolution against like their very, very B team. So like, I'm not ready to, we need to see more from this team. And like, it's really hard, especially for a professional sports team to be like, yeah, don't bother showing up fans until the summer because our coach isn't going to prepare us in the preseason every single year to actually go out and like win any games and also the weather's going to suck and all sorts of things. But like, there's no point of supporting this team until the summer. Like, that can't be the pitch unless you're like the New England Patriots, who were just like, wait till the AFC Championship game because that's when we're gonna get there, and then we'll figure out the Super Bowl. Like, this is a team that like underperforms, maybe figures something out to sneak into the playoffs, and then maybe goes on a run. And like, that's not what the fans deserve.
Think about how different the narrative would have been last year had we lost in the penalties to Charleston, which we have been known to do. Right? Our penalty kick victories are the aberrations across the larger body of evidence. We just happened to beat Charleston there.
It's also, and I think the other thing, like, I think I've been pretty consistent on this. Like, I think penalty shootouts are such a coin flip. Like, some teams are slightly better than others, but like, that's why I joked that Pittsburgh's run was fraudulent, because like there's coin flips all in there. Like, it's just a keeper diving one way or the other. But yeah, to your point.
But the fact that we went to the Eastern Conference Final, like you talked about the North Carolina situation. We won in the penalty shootout. We played North Carolina, which is dealing with something at the time. And then we went to Pittsburgh. So the narrative went to the Eastern Conference Final.
Deeply embarrassing in Pittsburgh. Like, horrific performance with horrific coaching calls. The starting lineup, the not playing, like, players who were literally League One players in like the best, like our player of the year the season before rode the bench until like the 88th minute. Like, stuff like that is just crazy.
So the narrative is, you made the USL final in year 1, you made the Eastern Conference final in year 2. So it bought a lot of goodwill. The run to the USL final was warranted. The team earned that in year 1. The year 2 run, there was a bit of fraudulentness there too, just like Pittsburgh, right? Because we could have easily been knocked out in the first round, and then the narrative changes a lot. And the issue here is that the team itself, like as an organization, is very invested in continuing in the continued phases of development of the property, of applying to USL Premier, potentially having to upgrade their stadium. They've talked about maybe putting in a women's team. Like, they have so many priorities that cost money. I do not see any situation in which they will let Connor go, because it would be an upward of the program. They would have to pay him out. They would have to bring in all new play. Like, it's such a big distraction and such a big money sink for them to have to go down that path. So they're riding this out, which is frustrating. It's frustrating that there isn't more heat there, which is why I'm okay with people chanting what they want to chant at the end of the games and having this discussion. Because while I don't think it's going to happen, I think that us as fans should and will continue to demand more. And that's just part of culture in this sport and also in this region. Like, we've talked about it many times. They talked about it too. We're in New England. We're used to demanding the best. And that's what we're doing here. Even if nothing's going to come out of it this year, we need to continue to push and demand the best.
Andrew, I know the funniest part of this. I actually never even did the Defiant 1636 Discord. We're still in the social section, folks. We're still in the social section, so I'm going to run through those quick. So we have Tim McDuff here. Lacrosse is fun. Shout out to everyone who went to the lacrosse matches or games, whatever they are, at Centerville Bank Stadium while we were all in Portland. We had Andrew H. with "This Isn't Working." We have Dave Audette with asking what the rules are on profanity for RIFC in 3. So we'll get back to his actual one. We had Terrace here with "Good. The supporters were alive and passionate, even if the team was not. Bad. What's with a rotated lineup on a full week rest?" I think we talked a lot about, how much rotation was there or not. Ugly. The result was not what we needed, and the Kano out chant was noticeable. Yes, as we just said. RIFC in 3. What was that? We got Chelsea with RIFC in 3. My soul hurts. We have Tim M here with the team. Good. The team can now put a full B team in cup games, and we can save the legs for the league. Bad. The cup, the start, the red card, the not red card. Do you have any idea what that meant?
No.
Me either. Nope. Ugly. Sorry, Tim. Ugly. The team and Kano bouncing at the end of the game and leaving Koke to answer the angry traveling fans. We got Leo O with good, scoring another goal off a corner kick. Bad, adjustments coming too late to address problems with transition. Ugly, haphazard passing, only worsened by the consistent wind. RIFC in 3, baffled beyond words. We got Andrew Gomes with RIFC in 3, pantsed in Portland. We got Andrew Milko here with good, success in a corner, I guess. I think that's good. Bad, so much possession, so many chances, so few goals. And ugly, running out of excuses. His RIFC in 3, hearts break back. We got Natesky here with his in 3 on to Brooklyn. We got Dave Audette, who came back with it after his permission. We got good away support, bad everything else, ugly all of it. RIFC in 3. What the fuck? We got Matt Jean here with RIFC in 3, F Portland security supervisor. We had good away support showing all the other teams in the USL what real supporters look like. His bad, Portland security, ugly, Portland security supervisor, and his bonus RIFC 3 just keep wanking. We do know there was some interesting stuff happening with with the Defiance. We definitely will talk more about that once everything gets squared away there, so we can talk about it. We do have Terrace here with another RIFC and 3 on to Brooklyn, which he originally said Portland, which was very funny. This is where we get into the part where people are having conversations. There's some interesting ideas around Portland potentially changing their max capacity to keep a solid streak. So keep your eye on there. If people want to talk about, we know our fans love talking about conspiracies and big chicken. There might be one to turn your attention to.
When they were handing out tickets to keep their sellout streak alive.
Yes, and that was it for RIFC and good, bad, ugly. So yeah, thank you all very much. These matches are tough. We come on here and we try to parse through them and do our best to talk about it and bring the voice of the fan to our best. But all of you chiming in and giving us your takes and your opinions are definitely a huge part of that. So really appreciate those who write in and those of you who join us live in the chat. But
really quickly, because I don't see it in the chat itself, but I see it internally in our thing. John Celio, great comment. Ty Talk host, do a great job. But only 12 likes is just sad. Poor fan support.
Yeah.
I can't say I disagree with this. Is poor.
Clap the Tide Talk, guys. Yeah. You're all mad about not getting clapped by the players. Come on. Unbelievable. But yeah, so really appreciate it. I mean, Andrew, anything to kind of sum this one up here?
No, I mean, there's a lot of frustration here. And I think it's easy to look at one bad result and just say, we're being entitled or whiny about not having players come over or overreacting to the loss. But this is adding to the pile of bad results, unacceptable results. So like the players are allowed to have bad games every once in a while, but the coaches are allowed to have bad games every once in a while. The problem is this is stacking up and the sentiment is growing. What I don't know yet is this really being felt to the broader RIFC fan base? Like I've been wondering this. Is this just, are we in an echo chamber and it's just the most hardened supporters that are feeling this way? But the vast, 90% of the stadium that shows up to these other games are perfectly fine with it. I don't know. And if the answer is that they're fine with it, they don't know what's going on, or they don't care enough to really be that upset about it, then I don't think there's going to be much change. But that shouldn't stop us from being able to vocalize how we feel about it. And even if our opinions change, like mine changes, I'm very much, I have high highs, I have low lows. I feel great about the team. I think the team sucks. I love the coach. I hate the coach. Like I go that from week to week, but I try to keep perspective on what the broader picture is. And the broader picture is just frustrating. It's been a frustrating experience.
Yeah, I mean, we always try to be as measured as we can be. Like, we try to present a lot of data on the show. We try to, really, give the eye test the best run that we can. So, we try to do our best. We're going to have our opinion. You're going to have yours. You're going to like the revolution and we're not. Like, you can do whatever you want. Like, just smash that like button. That's the only thing I can care, and vote for us in the Valley Breeze. So, folks, next up we host Brooklyn, and we actually. So, usually this is where I would ask if I don't forget your score predictions, but I'm going to ask you to hold off. We actually do have a special away end episode. So the away end is back this Wednesday at 8:30. So please save your score predictions from them. I'm very excited about this one. Close friend of mine is going to be on to help out with this one. So very excited there. But, other than that, that'll wrap things up for this one. So just a reminder that Tide Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily social media content. We also have TikTok and Threads, allegedly, but also have to make sure I shout out the blog at tidetalkri.com, where you can find the player ratings, pre- and post-match analysis, and our take on the latest RIFC news. We do have all of the blogs, it being the Monday episode, everything's out. So make sure you go take a look at those. Matt and Timmy did a great job there. But I've been your host, Ryan, tonight, and a big thank you to Andrew for joining me. Most importantly, thank you to everyone who joined live in the chat and anyone who supports the work that we do. We'll see you all next time. And as always, up the tide.
Up the tide.